And I'm live with Haley. Hello, Haley.
Hi.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go and look at... we're going to start... Yes, this is Battlestar Galactica, but what I want to concentrate on, folks, is we're going to go through the artwork that Ralph McQuarrie did and show you why Battlestar Galactica, the original series, Mark 1 as I call it, because when it was remade in 2003, I think, okay, well, how do we differentiate the series? Let's call it Mark 1 and Mark 2, like when the first tanks came out in World War One. They had Mark 1, Mark 2, etc. So Mark 1, the original, and this is what, and because what happened, folks, is Star Wars, 20th Century Fox sued Universal that made Battlestar Galactica for ripping off Star Wars. But the reason why Battlestar Galactica looked like Star Wars is because they used the same guy. And this guy, Ralph McQuarrie, is the reason why Star Wars had such an amazing look. This guy had a technical background. He was a technical illustrator for Boeing. And also he had this fantastic interest in science fiction. So now I'm going to go over to the graphics, and I'll just click on there, so that means it will stay on me even when Haley talks. So if we see here, folks, you can read that right there. This guy, Ralph McQuarrie, did the look of Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica. Wow, so look at, so, and Haley and I were, we looked at this a couple of days ago. So he served in the army, so he would have seen a lot of technical details of like how things fit together. And and this is worth reading here, folks. As you read that, and for those watching it on their mobile phones, I'll read this out. So this guy is so important to the look of Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars. So, for instance, impressed with his work, director and filmmaker George Lucas met him or had a meeting with him to discuss his plans for a space fantasy film. In fact, Lucas's original intent was to do Flash Gordon because he loved the Flash Gordon serial so much. Several years later, in 1975, Lucas commissioned McQuarrie because Lucas had enough money from making American Graffiti. Commissioned McQuarrie to illustrate several scenes from the script of the film Star Wars. And then he would then show them to these different Hollywood studios. Even with all of these things commissioned, this wonderful artwork commissioned, a load of studios said effectively on your bike. So McQuarrie designed many of the film's characters, including Darth Vader, Chewbacca, R2-D2, and C-3PO, and drew many concepts for the film's sets. It was McQuarrie who suggested that Vader wear a breathing apparatus. McQuarrie's concept paintings, including such scenes as R2-D2 and C-3PO arriving on Tatooine, the desert planet, helped convince 20th Century Fox to fund Star Wars. It cost $10 million at that time, which became a huge success upon release in 1977. Neil Kendricks of the San Diego Union Tribune stated McQuarrie holds a unique position when it comes to defining much of the look of the Star Wars universe. And then here's a bit here. At the funeral, after McQuarrie's death, his genial contribution in the form of unequaled production paintings propelled and inspired all of the cast and crew of the original Star Wars trilogy. When words could not convey my ideas, I could always point to one of Ralph's fabulous illustrations and say, do it like this. I also have a feeling that George Lucas might be an INTJ. Let's just say he has reduced emotional affect. You know, the INTJ face, as Haley and I call it. Now this is the relationship between C-3PO, inspired by the look of this wonderful robot from not 57, not 67, 1927. So Here we go. This robot from the film Metropolis. I'll give you a good look at that, folks. Right. A gynoid. A robot in the form of a woman. An android being a robot in the form of a man. Andro. Right. So there's some hormones, aren't there, Haley, called androgens, is that right?
Right. But none called gynogens.
Right. And then this is the woman, because recently there was an article when she died, this actress, when this article, what's it say there? Bridget Helm in Metropolis. Now, one of the reasons I bring this up is that the robots in Battlestar Galactica could have been better designed. I mean, 1978, that is 51 years after this, and so they should have been better. And then there's a robot there, robot there, and so the robot should have been better than. We'll have a quick spruce forward. They should have been better than this. Look at that. You've got gaps in the armor. I mean, someone in the Middle Ages would laugh at that and say, you know, you've not got proper armor protection. So that's bad by like 600 years ago. That's bad. Right. So, you know. So that could have been done better. Yeah, and I deliberately took the. Now, the people that made the show, they were quite good on the lighting.
You know, unless you just pointed that out with his shirt showing, I probably never would have even seen it.
Yeah. And it looks great when you're a kid. Now, so there's that aspect. Now, and Haley and I have been talking about, because Haley is a little bit of an artist. She's good at drawing faces. If you see her channel, what's your channel called, Haley, your new channel?
It's just Haley Harbor. Yep.
And she's got some funny little artwork on there. Good facial expressions, where there's a cartoon version of her own face and good eye expressions. And we've been talking about perspective, and just the technical aspects of being able to do perspective and vanishing points, and where you can draw something that is science fiction, but that looks real because you're a technical artist. You know how sciencey technical things look in the real world. You know the principles of perspective, and you draw it in a way. They had this concept called the used universe, where it wasn't just stuff that looked brand spanking new. It looked like equipment that was used. And so you can think of his experience. I think he said he was in the Korean War, which is a war that doesn't get talked about enough, the Korean War. All right. So good perspective there. Right. So we'll go through them.
Crazy. I mean, we're going to get to more, but yeah, the detail is crazy. That's one thing I feel like I suck at in drawing is talent to symmetry. Unless I literally like flip it over and trace it, I can't get it as symmetrical as he can. I mean, obviously.
You can see here. Do you think he's made this slightly what's it called? Slightly what's the term? Is it androgynous? Where it's you made the hips slightly wide because it's like
slightly wide. Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah.
You know, because it's like a little bit of a tribute to the because as you can see with the faceplate. I mean, his version is even more like the original than the actual finished version. Like if we go back to here, with because the finished version, which we've looked at before. Now, I'm looking at, and Haley and I were looking, and we think this one is particularly good. I remember Haley remarking on this. She was particularly impressed by this for like,
Yeah, just a little meticulous detail.
and getting all of the perspective right.
Yeah.
That, like, so it's like, so when you're drawing something from the imagination, but all of these moving parts are probably things that he is seeing in reality, how things
Yeah.
go together. So it's like you're seeing something from the imagination, but it's like that joint is realistic, that is realistic. It's realistic how
Right.
that would connect to that. And it really enhances it. And then plus on top of that, you've got really good perspective, and then you've got the really good detail, and that almost then you start to get, to my mind, almost a surreal effect. And this is where, like, to use like it's almost like it's really good for the imagination. Do you think so, Haley? Like, it's really the wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
And then here, like, just, and the combination of imagination and technique. So it's like, oh, I know how to do body proportions. I know how to do perspective. I know how to do light. All of these techniques building up. Same here. And you'll notice that, and so we're still looking at Star Wars at the moment. We'll look at Battlestar Galactica in a moment, and you'll see how there was some similarities come through, how it's the same guy. You got the reflections. And even remember in the Art of Star Wars book that they actually took the mickey a little bit about how the light's coming through these gaps. So it was almost as if the artist was sort of saying, well, I know technically the light wouldn't come through in that way, because it's like being like super realistic about it. But maybe that's something that NT is better than me would worry about, that sort of thing. This was apparently from a scene that never happened, where a fight in the airlock with Darth Vader. So it would have been before he actually like broke him, but they never actually shot this bit. Or maybe they were going to have a fight with Luke. With, you can see there he's got a breathing apparatus on. And there we go. Just more information there that he did work on Battlestar Galactica. And, you know, so Battlestar Galactica is not a rip-off of Star Wars. Completely different premise. So you can see there. After finishing the first Star Wars movie, Ralph McQuarrie was asked to do the concept art for the Battlestar Galactica 1978 series. Ralph McQuarrie worked on the designs of the Battlestar Galactica, which was pretty similar in Mark II. The Viper, and they've almost kept that exactly the same, haven't they, Haley? When because he called it, oh, the old one, because it's like, let's bring back the old one, and he loved it. And they had the museum. It's almost like you had Mark I Battlestar Galactica Museum, because apparently Ron Moore was about 12 years old in 1978 when it first came out, and he was such a fan of the original series. And so it's like, oh, I'm a huge fan of this series, let's bring it back. 9/11 had just happened 2 years before, so the series comes out in 2003. 9/11 happened in 2001, so you've got this post-apocalyptic situation where it's like, oh, what's going to happen after this attack? Let's put the good guys under a lot of pressure and see how they have to make difficult decisions. Cylon Vader base star. Now, they didn't use his base star designs. We'll see those in a moment. They were a bit cone-shaped, I suppose. It looked like I suppose it looked like an ice cream cone. And as you can see, that you can read that, folks, and we'll go through those. So there you go. RMQ, Ralph McQuarrie. And again, some pretty good perspective there. Hey, Haley.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he knows how to make it look dynamic. Let's put this one here to like give that like sense of depth that like this is like nearer to us and these ones are further away. Now, and this actually looks better than actually what was in the original. They couldn't have actually produced that without actually like. I mean, even now that looks pretty good. I mean, if you saw that, that's like pretty darn good screen.
Yeah.
Use of shadow, excellent stuff. Right. Oh, we've looked at that. Looked at her. Oh, I think they gave a good choice of actress by getting an actress with wide hips. To if you're going to do a female robot, make her look female. And for those that don't know, ideal proportions are hips as wide as shoulders, at least. Right. But probably when he didn't know what the cast would look like, so there's still some weird faces there.
That looks just like a. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. The guy behind the one in the helmet with the grayer hair.
You think that looks like Lundgren?
I don't remember the name. The guy who plays in
This guy?
the Virginia. Yes. He didn't know he was going to cast him, and they painted that. They had that painted before they.
I think maybe they did know. Maybe.
Okay. I was gonna say that looks started like really like a lot like him.
Right. Okay.
So that would have been kind of eerie.
Right, let's see where we go. Because I've got to try and. Because I may have got myself a little bit. Yeah, I got myself a little bit lost. So. I don't remember this woman being in. I would have remembered her. Looks like he's drawn a woman with like a 1960s hairstyle, like a Marilyn Monroe type figure there.
Yeah.
And of course, they didn't use this kind of helmet. It may have been better if they'd used. So they got the dagger. They got the little kid, and they even had the little kid Boxy in Mark II. You have to see how long he stays around for, though. What we got here? We got again perspective, just the Colonial Viper. This would have been very difficult to produce practically. You'd have to do it as a glass shot, some kind of like a masking shot where it's like. I think this is very high production values for 1927. The level of detail on the props and things. I'm looking at you, Doctor Who, in the 1970s and 80s. So it can be done, you know, with enough attention and care. You know, things could, you know, it doesn't matter what area you're in, you can have high production values. Oh, here we go. From the cost of this series was huge, so they decided to release it. Before they released it, they released a cut-down version at the cinema in certain territories. So, for instance, they were showing the series in the United States, and they decided, well, we could show this film abroad, and it wouldn't interfere with the TV rights. So they showed it as a film in the UK and in Australia and other countries, I believe. So, because then it wouldn't, you know what I mean? Because they're not, people in UK aren't watching whatever TV channel was on at the time, ABC or whatever.
Right.
So, if we see here, we can see again, like, extremely good use of, like, perspective, making it look real. Like, it's almost like, okay, that's good. And then, and again, it gets some perspective on there.
Yeah.
And we got some bits from. Here we go. Lorne Green. Yeah, I thought there was some good scenes. I liked there was a really good scene. There was some good writing in the miniseries, I thought. Some nice scenes. And here you can see that it's in the Star Wars style, this particular. In fact, here the Cylons look a little bit like stormtroopers. And they probably thought, well, this is pushing it a little bit. You've basically just done the stormtroopers, but in black. You know, like these guys, the guys that we saw here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like quite similar. I just got to get back. Right. Always going to be very difficult to do. There's always hampered at the time with alien costumes because the kind of rubber that they had, it was not flexible. They did not have that latex rubber thing that came in the 1980s. So, for instance, you see it in Predator. I don't know if you've ever seen Predator, Haley.
No.
But what it is, because they had this wonderfully flexible latex rubber, they were able to generate. Stan Winston, special effects genius, was able to put little motors around the jaw so that it would move. So it looked like it had like 4 jaw bones going at the same time. Because this rubber was so like flexible, it didn't look like a mask. And so that latex rubber didn't come in until the late 80s. And so that was a big advance. And of course here it just looks like thick rubber stuff. And you've always had the problem of having a human being on the inside. Yes, in the actual movie, the movie version was sort of shot where Boltar was beheaded in the movie, I believe. And in the the version you saw, the TV version, it was like, no, stop. And then they just have like a camp android come on, which is like a fantastic character. And it's like, they are taking the piss. Like, just bring on this guy, like with a camp American theatre standard accent. Because part of it at the time is a lot of this is for kids. Let's have something in for the adults. Let's have this layer in that's slightly taking the piss. Like, let's have a camp robot in. And right. But the question then becomes about doing it just right. And the new Star Wars film, K2, has this wonderful, wonderful robot in. It's like the best, even better than C-3PO. K2SO is called. And it's like, it's talking about dying in outer space. And you'll say, I won't die. You know, because he's a robot. It doesn't so he's a great character, K2SO. And then just, and then I think he's very good at the comedy. Dirk Benedict. So what were your thoughts? You've seen both now, haven't you? You've sort of seen both Star books. How do you think they compare?
I know you say that the female, the one they brought in to play Starbuck. I'm bad with names. I don't remember names. Sorry. Other than Starbuck, the female Starbuck for the Mark II version. I actually think that you say that she can get away with more humor, but I thought for her character she was fairly humorous.
Oh yeah, she's an extremely good actress. I mean, she's like, I would give her. You know me, I'm like really tough on acting. I give her, like with Eddie Olmos, I give those two 10 out of 10. And it almost becomes like ridiculous with like, they just like giving them like stuff that's like really tough emotionally to pull off. It's like, this is getting ridiculous. And it's like in season 4, Adama's like crying so much. And then there was a bit like where he was like being sick, and it's just like so convincing. And it's like just amazing quality acting. But I thought Richard Hatch plays a terrorist stroke freedom fighter in Mark II. Because this guy was a good actor. I actually think this guy's a better actor. And he died recently, unfortunately. Richard Hatch. What we got here? We've got. We never saw the Cylons. Oh yes, in the original. And this was something that Ron Moore, the guy that thumbnail sketch about Ron Moore. Like I said, he was 12 when he saw this version. He was about to go into the Marines. He had a big interest in the military, and he became a writer on Star Trek in about 1989. At first, all he could write was, according to I got a book on writing science fiction for television, and the Michael Piller said that at first Ron Moore could only write Klingon dialogue, and it took him ages to write for humans. And so, but after working on Star Trek for 10 years and working on other series, it's like he earned his apprenticeship. He learned all of his skills where he got to a point where he can write his own series and produce his own series, because like he's worked in television for 10 years, he's trained up, he's experienced, and he's done his apprenticeship. And he looked at this and he said, well, we don't want this sort of weird idea that the original Cylons were reptiles and like this Imperial leader is a Cylon version that looks like a reptile but really isn't a reptile. Let's shelve that aspect and let's just say that the Cylons were created by man, because then you can do that story, which goes back to the first robot story ever, which I believe was called by Rossman's Universal Robots by Karel Čapek, was a Czech playwright, and the robot comes from the Czech word robota, which means slave statue, and you get this whole theme of this idea of robots as servants, robots as slaves. At what point do then robots become independent sentient beings who should have rights? Those kinds of issues, and those kind of issues are very good philosophically. And so they sort of did that. So we got rid of that alien aspect. And then there was also there was a prequel called Caprica, and in the first, it was sort of like it was sort of like the pilot episode of the prequel. They said that it's not a spoiler, but it tells you what Cylon stands for. Cybernetic life form node. That these were created by humans. And so the idea is they rebelled. And one of the reasons why they rebelled is there was a Cylon religion, and which was about, hey, even you robots have a soul. There's one creator. You're made in man's image and all this kind. So that's why they always talk. And another twist that Ron Moore thought of putting in, let's make the Cylons monotheist, one god. Let's make the humans believe in the Greek gods, the gods of Olympus. And so you'll see Starbuck's, and Starbuck's quite religious. She like praises certain gods, and so that's why you'll have things like, and also the star signs in the planets. So they changed certain ones. So, for instance, I think they said Caprica. Caprica they kept the same. So Capricorn and they had like Sagittarius and Sagittarius, Pisces. Some of the names were slightly changed, but between Mark 1 and Mark 2. But like, so it's like this. Now, what he did rip it off from was a very famous novel in the 70s called Chariots of the Gods. And this is how originally I told Haley about Battlestar Galactica. She asked me about, hey, what about the idea of, oh, maybe you want to talk about that. I don't know if you want to talk about the idea that maybe life started.
Wait, what was that last part? Talk about what?
About, because you were asking me about, Ben, about could life have started from out there and came here.
Oh. Yeah, well, I don't remember our exact conversation, but yeah, basically we got onto that, and then Battlestar Galactica. Have you ever seen it? Watch it.
It's the same thing. It's the pardon. What was that? Yeah, we could watch it. Yeah, I always make. You see, I do have a habit. You may have noticed, folks, that Ben makes connections to things he's interested in order to get the person to talk about the thing, or to talk about those things he's interested in. He's very self-indulgent. Right, so we got so So what is known as a film still, more perspective. I think actually this is upside down, given away by RMQ being upside down.
Yep.
Yep. Right. So when we were talking before about the bad, about things that people can do well, and just doing the little things well, doing the basics well. And so this would be an example of doing the basics well. We talked about the problems with the robots before. Here, you can see how well lit they are. You don't see the problems with the black sort of like undershirt type thing. There, they look more convincing.
Yeah.
You get your lighting right. And of course, this would have been a so-and-so to light with all these reflective surfaces and stuff. So, right, so there we go. And then we got and this is just from the little book that I have. And again, good perspective. Oh, we've seen that bit before. And then that's just the tie-in book. And so this is his idea of what the Cylon base ship would have looked like. And so, yeah, so this is just the tie-in to the... Oh, yes. Another reason it looked like Star Wars is they got... There we go. John Dykstra to do the motion control. Motion control is where you have computer-controlled cameras move around miniatures in order to get in order to get dynamic look, and so it matches it perfectly, and then you can put another element in, like say another ship, and just move the camera in where you can precisely repeat the same move, and then when you join all the elements together, they'll all match up. And so that's how you got that dynamic model shots in Star Wars. Now, they originally used this in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but they didn't have computers then. They used like clockwork for it, but there was a lot slower passes. But motion control is a very good thing. Right, so we get to his sketches. But I don't know. Haley can give me instructions about when to move on. You can say next or...
Yeah, no. The speed you're going at was good.
Okay.
That's nice. Look at all that detail. That's incredible. I wonder how long it took him to just make one sketch.
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of it is like... I think that a lot of it is... I don't think it would have taken... I mean, like once you know what you're going to do... You see, I don't know. See, I don't know how much he was like, oh, I could do this, I could do that, how many changes and things. But,
yeah,
do not know. I'd have to look for like an interview with him. Right, so these little bits. And he's got hair. Like he's put. It looks like he's put for the Ovions. And again, this would have made things even more expensive. Ant people have ant-like robots. What are their... Something like an ant people fly, something etc. Do they... That would have cost so much money to do. I mean, you could do that now with like CGI, but even that would be expensive. Yeah. And they hardly use CGI in Mark II because it was so expensive. Oh yes, I would hear on commentaries that just a digital set extension would take up so much of the budget just to make like the landing bay, the hangar deck look bigger. Because when you're doing a digital set extension, Haley, and it's like when they were doing it at the time, it was like with a moving camera. And so all of the perspective was changing in real time. And that took a lot of computer power to render.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier, like if you have the camera like fixed, locked off, and everything stays the same and lines up. So his design.
Yeah.
Just gonna click there, then I know when you see it. Again, R and Q. No. They didn't go with that. They went with. You ever seen before that? It's like these kind of things where it's like just shows off. Like I know how to do perspective.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
I know my vanishing points. It's like if you know all the shortcuts, like you do a figure like this, these are all the proportions, and you got it all ingrained. It's like, boom, but it's probably like, I mean, a parallel example would be like you now know how to draw your head quickly in cartoon form, in those cartoons that you've been doing.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, all the detail. I mean, like he knows what he's gonna do, but all the little lines, all the little meticulous like squares, and just I wonder how long it takes him to just draw all that. Seems like it would take so long.
Mm. Well, I mean, remember we hear things like with certain other artists, like painting the Sistine Chapel. I think it was Michelangelo. I could have that completely wrong, but it was like something like 15 years or something. And apparently he gayed it up because there's some things that Michelangelo was a little bit gay because like he always drew guys in very, very good shape. And I think he liked guys in like really buff. Like there was that picture of him like with like the really buff guy, like touching hands almost with God, and like all of his statues and everything.
Yeah.
And I think even certain popes were like, this is a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
And even like drew over certain areas, like with the. And then here, like getting the perspective right, just on that wall, like when you know what to do.
Yeah.
Just, get into the main. Yeah, I actually think the ones they actually used in the program are better than these sort of like circular ones because that's too much like what we've already seen before. Because we've seen so many flying saucers in like movies beforehand. And that's good perspective. Not just good perspective, but the use of shadow around here.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, it's like it's probably going to be a situation because we don't really know. It'd be great if Imogen were here, where she would be able to say, "Yeah, that would take ages. That would be because like she was a technical illustrator."
Okay.
Let's get. Of course, these ones, and of course these ones weren't used. It'd be like too much to. Because like at the time, the things would break down. The electric motors would break down. They were not reliable in that era. And the radio waves for like controlling them, and I mean that they built a real robot. They had a fantastic robot in Buck Rogers in the 25th century, which is actually the series that replaced this one that Glenn A. Larson. When Battlestar Galactica was cancelled, they brought back Battlestar Buck Rogers in the 25th century, and in the second season, they had this camp robot, Contraire, and it was like, I am en route. So a robot with attitude is always As long as they're funny, I don't mind it because you can program it that way.
Yeah.
And it has a real ENTP character. I like the perspective on this. The little bit of tapering going on. In a sort of sense that, yeah, that does look like a jet engine. Because that looks like things I've seen before. So it's like all the NTs are probably like nod. The NT males are nodding with approval. Right, and then just him having a go at working on the logo. Yeah, that's a little bit funky, that one.
Yeah.
That'd be like for a cartoon series.
Busy. It's two stuck together. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah. Again, what you can do with perspective. Nice. Diff things on different levels. It's almost like, I mean, when we were talking about, I mean, when you're talking there about detail.
Yeah.
Lots of detail. It's like when we were, because Haley and I once spent hours looking at HR Giga artwork, and it's like, and I think Giga was INTJ, and again he had an engineering background, where it's like I will do this surreal stuff, but I will, and he's like, but he's put all these engineering things in, so he's got that weird combination of like fantastic technique, where the perspective's right. The joins are right and all this, but it's all weird and surreal. And I think that all like really heightens and adds to it. So, and just do that little bit there, great sense. The things that, so as an artist, what McQuarrie knew from an appreciation of perspective, and again, what they would have been taught through all of the techniques that they learned is the things that they can add, the depth cues, in order to make things just stand out more. And again, I mean, very good. I mean, they would have done, and he would have done things like that, where, and again with engines, how many engines would Ralph McQuarrie have drawn, being a technical illustrator for Boeing? They've drawn a lot of engines,
right?
And cockpits and things. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I hope I wasn't going too quickly then. Did you see them all? I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I should have looked at. I was looking at the wrong screen because there's a slight delay. Because on my laptop I can see what you see. Because there is a slight. Then we see that one before, and then I'll go just a bit more on the Ovions, and then we should be getting more towards the end, and then into the the Council of 12 RMQ, folks. There we go. I'll just belabor the point. That's good. A little bit different from the finished version. We've got twin fins. Yeah, RMQ Battlestar. Right. Wow, that's good. I've just seen that now on the laptop. That is really good perspective. Just by adding those sort of like runway lights, it sort of like brings it to life. Excellent. Especially now because I'm watching it in a dark room. That sort of like that really like brings it to life. Right, yeah, you've not. Right, right, you've not seen these ones before because I sort of thought, well, hang on a minute, let me show them in the. I'll. There's a new ones for you now. I like that. But, all right, yep. Yeah, very.
Go back one. Go back.
Yeah.
So this guy just sits up there all day waiting for people to come in. There's a problem. There's a problem. Or what's the deal?
Hey, there's a great one. There's one where they take the piss, where they have a castle, and male Starbuck meets a hot, like 18-year-old woman, and it's like he gets taken prisoner, and he comes in, and it's like he's stood there next to a Cylon. He gets a cigar and a match out, lights his match on the Cylon to light his cigar, and says, "I like how you've not gone overboard on furniture." Like all of these like fantastic lines. I'm thinking, yes, this is the way to do it. And it's like such a cool character. And in that you've got like a camp conniving, and you've got a battle of two camp robots. So that is a favorite episode. And you've got in that same episode, you've got these Cylons in this castle polishing their guns and going down the castle steps extremely gingerly because they could hardly see the folks inside. So that's a favorite episode of mine on a sort of like a non-serious level. I love that. And like things like that being carried through the swamp, and robots talking about humans being inferior, and Starbuck saying, "At least I don't rust. Be silent." So it's like lots of. No. So that is a good one. Yeah, I do like that. I do like that. That's brilliant. Imagine you could have that wall there, Haley, for like your big ass cell graphic, where you like get everything going there. All of the pathways, because it is probably that complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. That would be something. There are so many redundancies in the pathways, though. That's what makes it complicated.
I'm just thinking there, the use of shadow. Excellent. Excellent use of shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember seeing as a kid when I saw this, it was so scary, that stuff about, when they're eating them alive. Oh, that was scary. Like the Ovions eating them alive. Oh. And always, whenever they showed it, I thought, I hope it's not that one where they're eating them. Right, let's see where we're going now.
Wow, that's nice. I love the detail up on like the towers.
Yep.
That's nice.
Oh, we've seen that one. We've seen that one before. All right. Again, that's going to be hard to do. That's going to be hard to do. You could do that in CGI. It's going to be hard. So that's not really producible. But I think this is that earlier graphic the right way around now. But maybe lit. That ship I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't used. Let's see how many. Ah, right. Now we're actually going to start getting into the actual program soon. Very soon. And we're in the actual program. I'll put the light on in celebration. Right. I will be back momentarily. And I am now... Did I just see something up there? Oh, it's just the moon. I thought I saw Mercury. So now we see the look of Star Wars. Right. Yeah, so this would have been the kind of equipment that I imagine that standard stuff that they would have had in aeroplanes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, where is the horizon in space? It's like it must have like an agreed upon. How do you level out? Because that's like one of the cliches in space, is that everyone's at the same like attitude. Where is like up and down and left and right?
Right. Yeah. Maybe it has some sort of a sensor, like with the ship. Like there's some sort of a magnetic.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah, I don't know.
Because unless like you've got like fixed star positions where it's like orient you.
Right. Yeah. And they have like a plane. You're right.
Yeah. It's like, well, we've decided this is up, this is down.
Right.
Right. And then we've got going through here. And that's the younger brother called Zach, and they had that in Mark II, but a little bit of a difference. It was that, spoiler alert, that Zach died because Starbuck passed him, and she was the instructor, and she was having an affair, a romantic involvement with Zach, and it wasn't Adama's fault. It was Starbuck's fault. You know, she passed and he wasn't really ready to be a pilot. And so that sort of like works its way through in here. Contemporary 1970s computer graphics, like what they would have had and would have been very expensive. Again, miniatures and motion control. I think this looks cool. It's pretty much like what computer screens were like. And so they probably like had them built for the program.
Yeah.
Here's an example of motion control and of an optical effect. In fact, it's probably better if I show it there. You see the little black line around here? It's where they've sort of joined the two images together. I think what they would have done is they had a thing. The way it works, I believe, is called an optical printer, where they would have, say, masked off the all the stuff around the shuttle. They would have like masked all that off, projected that onto some negative film, and that part of the film that corresponds, you know, when you projected the image onto it, that corresponds to the shuttle would have been exposed. And then what they would have done is they would have maybe projected the background onto the bit that hadn't been exposed to the shuttle and masked it off. And then so it's like you've exposed the same bit of film in like different parts. So it's like, did you get me, Haley? Sort of like,
yeah,
with the so it's like you're reprojecting it onto another bit of film. So it's almost like you're taking a photo of a photo via a projector. Right. And we've got Adama Senior. Well, yeah. Oh yeah, they call him William Adama in Mark II. They just call him Adama in this. again, these things, the model work like this takes ages, but at least you've got this huge supply of people with the ability to do this kind of thing, because you have model makers out there. As a kid, early teenager, I made a couple of models, but that was it. So this sort of like model making. So the model makers are still out there, and good on them. So you get that level of detail, you can like really go close in. Look at here, look at this. Does you build all this with like real monitors and stuff? It cost a fortune. Like real computers and stuff, like a real like working set. There you go. You get the, as I was saying before, you get the lighting right. Stuff looks cool. You get your lighting right. You get the voice right. They got the voice perfect on these Cylons. They weren't like inky dinky. Oh, we're gonna get these humans. It's like instead of having like the camp robots, you have like the serious ones. Extermination. Like you get the right voice.
Mhm.
And a good miniature model of a damaged ship. And then you got similar scene, except Starbuck doesn't punch anyone. This game, which they call Pyramid, they changed that to a sort of like a contact sport type ball game. Although they do have Triad in. They had Triad in the original, and they changed that to Pyramid. So they have similar things that they reuse so much of the original in Mark II, but then they add all this extra stuff to make it more sophisticated. So it's like it's on so you can see that it's on a bedrock. The bedrock of Mark II is in Mark I, but then it's like they raise it up a level. And so it's great for fans of the original that they then like get this more serious version with like, so it's like you get the same thing twice. It's like if they'd have done it exactly the same, it's like, well, you're not getting anything new.
Yeah.
And again, just going through, fantastic. Maren Johnson. Oh yeah, they had some good reaction shots, you know, to all the reactions to the attack and stuff, like really. And of course, for them, this was made in Cold War era, so for them, it's like they're thinking nuclear Holocaust type situation. And then I thought this shot was very, again, you have a dynamic shot. So this would have been achieved by, so what happened in the past was you moved the miniature around the camera. The problem there was the miniature would wobble. What you do is you build the miniature massive. You make the miniature about 8 foot long. You put incredible detail on it. You spend about 2 years making it, and you move the camera with a computer you have a computer controlled camera in very precise movement, and then it's like really dynamic.
Yeah.
And you can join them together. All right. Of course, one thing you can't do with miniatures is blow them up, because as soon as you blow up a miniature, it looks like a miniature that's just blown up rather than the actual real thing. Because it's like if you blow up a miniature of a house, it just blows up in like really big bits rather than little bits. But you can see here, it's looked like they've actually bought the real equipment. it's like they've built the real thing, like build like proper computers at the time that. And then like have this that rotates for like no reason, but just because it's cool. Have this whole thing just turns around. What many people we got here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You got to plumb all the computers in. Wow, and this kind of shot I really like, where you get your combination of, you got your miniature, you got like bits on fire, you got ships going by. That was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And you shoot it at a good angle to show perspective as well.
Mm-hmm. And you can see all the detail of the underbelly. That's pretty nice.
And also, is that thing where we've talked about the effect of convergence, where if you have the camera at the right distance, you get more of a perspective effect when something is like nearer than when it is further away.
Mm-hmm.
And the original Colonel Ty, it was a little bit of an SJ compared to the the SP in the new version. The new Colonel Ty being very like ESTP alcoholic. This guy being positive black role model ISTJ type character. And again here, and then you can see the black line there. So like the way that like joined up the images on the optical printer. That's quite clever. That you got to, in these situations, you got to think about, well, really, you should be able to see someone in the cockpit. And so sometimes they would,
because of the light coming through. Yeah, but unless the glass is just super tinted.
Yeah, and that's, so they have to think about things like that. Because now sometimes they are able to like put it in to actually like project the image of the person in the cockpit, like, and combine the image so you can see them in it. But these like things can be, and one of the things what happened during the original series is they would repeat these shots again and again and again because it was like hard to come up with new ones because it was like just so labor intensive. But again, if you just compare back to CGI is very expensive, especially there's a big difference between 2003 and 2009. They were able to do a lot more in 2009 in Battlestar Galactica, just in like making CGI robots almost look real. And you've watched Game of Thrones recently, haven't you, Haley? Yeah. Where it's like the dragons and the werewolves, the direwolves, they almost look real. It's like close but no cigar. It's like almost. Whereas I like these old techniques. Right, here we go. The best thing to do is to combine techniques. So, for instance, if you as soon as you get to a point where you need to like blow it up, then go CGI. Or I would just like use it as like a reference point for the CGI people. And it's like, okay, make it look like that with that amount of texture. I want texture. And, good shot there. Yeah. Nice shot there. That might be a little bit of a big set, eh, Haley? Let's have it on levels for no real reason. But
I like levels though. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like.
They all. Yeah. I hear this on like Doctor Who things. It's like all the set designers want to do that because they don't want it to look like a flat floor. They always try to do different levels. And they did that on Mark II as well, where they had like different levels, right, where you come down into it. And I think Ron Moore's idea was, let's not have a bridge. Let's have like, it's like on a proper American ship where the combat information center, you want to have it like in the middle, heavily protected type area of the ship.
Yeah. I don't know. It just feels so cozy, like just down the stairs in your little computer nook. I don't know.
All the INTJs there.
Maybe.
Right, then we got oh yeah, it's just like nice, graceful, like banking maneuver type thing on the. Now this miniature in my, and I can see here where they've done the join. You can't quite see it, but you can see here this miniature is not quite as detailed as the Galactica. So the actual miniature itself is probably quite a bit smaller than, because that's the way you get it to look realistic is just by building it massive. Like, get it like 8 feet long, and like then you go really close in, get your model makers in, the people that make these model airplanes that really care about detail, and then you can go like really close in. So it's a good miniature, but it's not quite as good as Extermination. That was right in it. So Starbuck here, it's like, I like how you're not gone overboard on furniture. And then random, let's just put a green lizard on the shoulder. But then that's sort of like, don't do that again. So there we go.
I never would have noticed that. Nope. Oh, man.
And then...
So do you think they're trying to hint of the reptile thing?
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Like, what music? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like, I agree with Ron more that it was better that they changed it to like they were created by humans. It's sort of like the changes. What do you think about the two versions?
Sorry.
Like, you know, like, what do you think? Whether made by humans or reptiles?
Well, I like the backstory, the fact that, like the Cylons in Mark II, that the Cylons made themselves, I guess, in man's image because of, you know, the whole God thing, and they think that God made man in their image. And yeah, I like that backstory, so I probably have to go with that.
Yeah, and it sort of like gives good logic to it. Let's right, so I'm locked on there, so I need to go back to this one. How much time do we have left, Haley?
We have as much time as it takes to finish this.
Right, okay, good, because we're about we're about 1/3 the way through the graphics. you can see this little thing here, do you see this little blue thing at the bottom, this sort of like little blue worm?
Okay, yeah.
That gives an idea of like how many
Gotcha.
how far we've got to go. So and again here, another example of like combining the images on the optical printer. I just thought like that. That just like brings a little tear to my eye sometimes. That's like, oh, that's so the positive feeling of that. That was like so NF. That is so nice.
Right. Yeah.
Oh. And then to have it come in and like, I don't know if they actually had it. They should have had it. It would have been a little bit. It might have been a little bit like to actually have like the Cylons like deliberately target it and blow up the words. That would have been a little bit too much, but it's almost.
I don't think so.
It almost would have been figuratively that, or like have it burning. But of course, this is all like on location. It's like, hey, what are you doing to our thing? Our futuristic architecture.
Yeah.
And over here, Jane Seymour, who was in For Your Eyes Only. Very good Bond film, by the way. It's got Yaphet Kotto in, fantastic Bond villain, very good actor, Yaphet Kotto, and he plays the police chief in Homicide: Life on the Street that I'm reviewing with Jeff.
Okay.
Looks like let's get proper equipment in. We've got better monitors than they are. But, oh, that's good. Here we go, Haley. Here we go. A little discussion about perspective and combining images and making sure that you get everything right. So as you can see here, so all of this, I suppose this stuff around here, where you can see my mouse, this is like real, like part of the set. This, I suppose all that's real. And of course this is a painting, and this will be a painting. And you see the little black line there, where it sort of like joins up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can imagine what would happen is if this camera moved, it would be very hard to join that up and have it all be in sync in terms of all the angles.
Right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing a perspective shot like this, the camera has to be locked off, completely still, and then it's like, okay, from that position, what would these buildings look like from these angles? And to get everything lined up, and you can see like this is an idea of a vanishing point, where the point of convergence would be somewhere, I suppose, there on the horizon, the imaginary point of convergence. And then all these other lines, like these lines, would sort of converge on the horizon. They're sort of like imaginary vanishing points. So and then there'll be another line with those two. And so all of these things, and then these two parallel lines would sort of like, so it's like getting it all lined up like that would be a good example. And these days you can like move the camera and have things in sync, but it makes things, but even when they do things like you watch Game of Thrones, something modern, like when they do an establishing shot, usually it's just like the camera stays pretty still, they show the outside, they only show it for a second or two because it's a lot of bloody work doing it. You know, when they show like the outside of a castle or something, and it's like, that's a lot. I would just like show a painting. My intro sequence would be like in the actual paintings of things, because what I would do is I would save the budget on for things that worked, on things that moved. And my intro sequence would be a lot better than the one they used in Game of Thrones, because it would match up the name of the actor or actress with the part they are playing. They have these names coming up, and I don't know who they play. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not looking it up. Right. Peace. Oh, I have an NF moment when I saw that. And they even dressed like NFs as well. And so imagine the NFPs would dress in the future at the Peace Rally. Pastel shades. Right. And like people might be saying, "Hey Ben, I have you know that's just Californians that turned up wearing their own clothes." We were going to ask them to wear costumes, but they came dressed like that anyway. Right. 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 I like this. Very good. Very good. Very nice. Very, very nice. Very impressed. Matching it up again, Haley, where like your optical printer, like printing it and joining it together, the different layers, where because you got a miniature that's coming across, lined up precisely with the angle that you've chosen for that coming across, and then having the explosion come off at the same time, so that it looks like it's actually done that. So that's a nice shot. And then, and these would have been put in afterwards. They would have had little explosions on the set. These laser beam things would have been put in afterwards. So just like little charges going off. Ooh, hardcore. Ooh, reactions. That's a good shot. Yeah, again, good for showing perspective. The depth cues in that shot. Yeah, let's just show off our proper computer stuff from 78 technology, all the latest technology, all the latest tech. All right. Again, that's good. Like, that's good because like you've got a camera on a crane and then actually have a real crane underneath. So that's quite a neat shot for a TV show. And then Starbuck showing us a little bit of an STP. This actress, I think she was stung by the criticism that she wasn't the greatest actress in the world, and so she didn't do much acting after this. Oh yeah, here, this is an example of I would say projection, either like back projection, front actual projection, where this is a set with the tree and the grass and stuff, and this is like a fake background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doesn't quite. All right, there we go, and then. Actually, the clothing was quite similar when they did Mark II. I can't remember. Except when they had the people coming down and they wanted to get on the... And they had one guy, they talked about it on commentary, one guy carrying his books. One Enneagram Type 5. He was like carrying all of his books. Have a slate guy.
Well, I mean... There's one book that I would probably carry with me. If it was like life or death situation, I'd probably leave it. But I mean, if I was carrying a sack full of stuff, I would take it.
Right. Is that your own book with your own notes?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Then you can see how he got it right. I remember when Ralph McQuarrie was drawing stuff in perspective, and there you go. There you got like the real thing in perspective, and you can also tell folks that. The reason why you've got that much perspective is because the camera is quite close to the actual object, rather than it being further away and then zoomed in, because then you have less convergence. This was quite. And then it was like, where were you? Where were you, Flyboys, protecting us? Yeah, I actually think like their actual idea of the plan wasn't quite as good. Technically, as in Mark II, where it was just this idea that they've got tankers. Like militarily, they didn't sort of like work it out as well. But I thought in Mark II, having a network attack, that rings a lot of bells for that sort of thing that could happen these days, where all of these militaries, and especially the United States, they're going for integration. You can have a network attack. Don't want all of this stuff all connected together. You want stuff decentralized, and that is why, like in the Mark II, the reason why the Galactica doesn't get affected is that all of his computer systems are separate, no networks on his ships, whereas all the other ones, they all had the latest software with that bugger. Remember had that recently had that virus. I don't know if you heard about it on the news that infected. It went around the world. Recent virus. Did you hear about that, Haley?
No.
There was this sort of like ransom virus. It went, and then this is now some of these ships. They like this ship. They reuse, or sort of they do a CG version of this ship. Now, actually, some of these ships that they use in this may have actually been in previous science fiction films because that used to happen a lot. And what happened in 2001: Space Odyssey is they destroyed all the ships because they didn't want them turning up again. But some But this one did turn up again in Mark II, but a CGI version of that one. Because again, he was a fan. Let's have some of the original ships.
Mm-hmm.
That one turns up again, I believe. That's becomes Colonial Movers. I think that turns. And then again, good use of perspective by get the camera really close up. You can see how it's like converging away, and but me, I'm like with a lot of things. I'm like, why is it in English? It's like, I wouldn't have it in English. I couldn't have it in English. It's not too much. It's too much suspension of disbelief. Or I would have to have that in Alien. If it'd be me, I would be like so obsessed about it. It was I would like maybe even like have them speak an alien language and overdub it in English. Realism.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you know, you can't take realism too far where it's like the cast would be cursing you. They'd be cursing me for my realism. Or what you could do is like get people who like speak some obscure language, have them act it in that obscure language and then overdub it in English.
Yeah.
We move anywhere. Count Belter. Proper, because of course they, and of course I do like the Belter in Mark II better than Mark I. Yeah, you talked about my Belter love.
Yeah, we do.
Loving James Callis and the Mark II Belter that I feel sorry for. I connect with him as an NTP. It's not his fault that he's got a weakness. He's got a weakness for the finer things in life.
You mean the poo-tang?
Yes, the finer things in life. He didn't know. He didn't knowingly do it. He didn't knowingly lead to the slaughter of billions of people. And he does feel bad about it. I mean, in the NTP, he might go, not my fault. And then, there we go. He's like definitely playing it as a villain. And like James Callis was always saying, look, I don't want to be playing a baddie. Like, try and make him a bit nice. And it's like, it's not my fault, you know. I've been framed. And he does get to a point, Baltar, where it's like, how many times do I have to save your lives before you start trusting me? So, pastel shades, so it's got to be the future. Ooh, a little bit of something for the dads, as they would say in England. Damn that bunk. Right. And then, oh, good lighting. Oh, yeah, this good scene. Remember this scene where Starbucks, they're talking about that he doesn't want to get in a relationship and stuff, living for the day. And he says, no, you can't wait to get into that ship. You love getting into that ship. You love taking these dangers. You know, you love taking these risks. And so it's like SP temperament. So it's like these little things keep coming up that sort of like fit, and it's like with the Kersey temperaments, these things come across in the most visible ways, the things which are most noticeable, where you can go, oh, that's SJ mentality, that's the SP mentality. Like 80 to 90% of people are sensing types. These are the things that come across, and it's like other things, the finer points of typology, you have to know people more. And like sometimes with Enneagram, you can notice someone's Enneagram type, and it's like boom. Like they're like with Del Boy, he's all about this time next year, Rodney will be millionaires. Boom, Enneagram type 3, and or if someone's a helper. And again, like noticing. Like I said, in reality, like once you learn about perspective, you start noticing it and overlaying reality with these construction lines. And I think that people who have an eye for such things, and directors, they know where to put a camera in order to make an image have depth to it. So it's not just flat. Let's have things that give a little bit of a distance to things. I noticed this when I watched Rogue One in 3D at the cinema, and I noticed there that whenever they had things at different depth levels, even if when the image was static, you had a good 3D effect on it. Right, so there, go across there. I mean, and again, this would have been a join up on the optical printer, because that would have had to have been printed, and then the other one printed. Yeah, because this would have this would have to have been printed first on the film. So this bit would have had to have been projected first onto the film, and then the rest of the film exposed to other elements of it. And sort of like parts of the film exposed at different types and masking it off and things like that on the optical printer. Then of course they did that. Yeah, that's the mining ship, of course, and I think they had that in Mark II. Ah, here's a point. They didn't have this character in Mark II. Cassiopeia, the socialator. They changed her to the medtech nurse for the series. So what did you think of this character, Haley?
Well, it's not hard to figure out what socialator.
Yeah.
Well, at least in the context and when you watch it, yeah. But yeah, I mean.
But I liked how.
I thought it was funny. Well, we'll get there.
You're gone.
No. We'll get there. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, it was funny. There's bits like next time it'll be office rates and all this kind of stuff, and they had some good dialogue in there. Some interesting and nice little sarcastic lines like, nice to see that you are still in your period of mourning.
Right, yeah.
Cyrus Yori would no doubt be moved by your period of mourning. Something like that. Because I know how INTJ is like a little bit of stinging sarcasm there. They love that.
A little bit.
I think this guy is get a British actor to play a baddie. You know, that's how it goes. Or get John Colicos. Again, another thing from this era, American theatre standard. Like, because it's like, so you got Adama doing like sort of like mid-Atlantic, posh American, northeastern. American theatre standard is a little bit like Massachusetts kind of blue blood kind of accent, where it's a little bit theatrical, a little bit not. It's not a case of anyone sounding like they've come from a particular part of the United States. It's like the kind of voice. So, for instance, this voice here, you could get away with an American would use. What they wanted, the American theatre standard started when what they wanted was a voice that they could use when American actors and actresses were doing Shakespeare and the classics, where it's like, well, we don't want to try and do an English accent and get it wrong, but we don't want to do a straight American accent because it would sound weird doing Shakespeare in an American accent. Let's do it in a kind of like theatrical kind of accent that is from American theatre standard land rather than from the United States. And so they thought, well, and so they settled on a sort of accent that sounded like the way JFK would talk. So American theatre standard is, so it's where it sounds, Haley, a little bit halfway between half American and half English.
Okay.
That kind of, like Lloyd Grossman is like, who would live in a house like this? Am I American or British? It's for you to decide. That kind of thing. All right. Oh, fusing the bone. I can now go back to my socialating ways. And then there's... Oh, and then I can tell you what happens when he gets caught out, Starbuck.
Yep.
You got all this stuff with Borealis, and it's like, well, at least it's like a plot convenience, but it's not a convenience in terms of like getting them out of something. It's a convenience in terms of getting them into something. Where it's possible the Cylons have got like a trap everywhere. And there's only so many options. So it is possible they could have laid a trap. Oh, so let's have a look at some demographics here. So we've got a black guy on the council. We've probably got about one woman on the council, so they're not doing well in that area. All old. All right, we got NT. We've got the NT there. Let's just build a robot. Let's just put a chimpanzee in a robot. No, sorry. Let's just build a robot. And hey, I just told Haley that, and I'm not joking. There was a chimpanzee in that thing, and so it made production very tricky, especially when the chimpanzee didn't like being in there for an extended period of time.
I don't blame it. Yeah.
And this is Noah Hathaway. Oh yeah, there's a little stories like what this guy did. For Jane Seymour's birthday, he got his mother to buy some perfume that he gave to Jane Seymour. And so he was like, just as a little kid, he was like putting moves on Jane Seymour. So he talks about that in like the documentary. Oh yeah, there's a good scene where he talks about not wanting the responsibility of command. So it was like similar themes, and like him feeling old and past it. So sort of like things that would be like picked up in Mark II and sort of developed further. Right. Oh yeah, that's him. He doesn't want the responsibility. Ah, right. Oh yeah, and again, you good perspective. All right, and then they want to. Starbuck wants to go in a somewhere more private, in the launch tube, and Athena sees them. Now, what was originally shot? There was a version of this where he had his shirt off when the steam goes up, and they thought, "Oh, that's a little bit too saucy for network television," so they put his like shirt back on, his top back on there. Oh, there's a nice effect. And then going through the mind area. You have to like shoot lasers. Have to be directed to shoot these mines. So, gave a pretty good sequence. Let's go through there. Pretty good detail on the things. And of course, what they would do here is whenever something blows up, they just do to a complete explosion where it just like instantly disintegrates it, because they don't want to see a miniature blow up. Because then if you see a miniature, then obvious it's a miniature that's blown up.
Yeah.
Because it blows up in big chunks. Right, and then we've got the mining ship for, I think they called it. They have the same thing, Thallium. I can't remember which Mark pronounces it which way. Baltar, my colony was supposed to be spared, all this kind of stuff. I know their ways and all that. Oh yeah, like build this vehicle, a workable vehicle. I don't know how much that cost. Oh yeah, things like he come across a party and then this woman's like, "How dare you drawing your weapon on me?" and all this kind of stuff. And then like, I think she's been smoking some plant vapor. Oh, it's just in. Look at all this money I've won. Why haven't I heard about this place? All that kind of stuff. And he's like giving him a look. I know where every poker joint is. Oh yeah, and lighting. Like a good example of lighting. You can see everyone's face.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's dark, you can see everyone's face and his hand. What the hands. So the things like this is like they'd spend like a long time lighting it, and then when they go to a different angle, lighting that, you can see why it takes a long time. You only got one camera.
Yeah.
And then you can tell when this was made. So it's in the future, but whenever they put the music on, it's like disco music. It's like present contemporary music with contemporary hairstyle. And this actor, was saying that these women were really good looking before they put all that makeup on them. And they made them look, and then they gave them all these eyes. Ugh. I'm not picking that as a thumbnail. Right. Oh, here we go. How do you think this was done, Haley?
Yeah, it looks like a painting.
Yeah, and not only that and then it's sort of like this bit was joined together, I suppose. Yeah, I think that was a painting as well. Oh yes, this bit I believe they had a hole in, and this bit was like moving around. So it was like, not totally static. So it was like there was a little bit of movement here, and a little bit of movement here, and a little bit of movement there. But yeah, with the old painting going on. Again, if you get the lighting low enough, Langotron. They actually have these things. At least don't have them speak English. At least you have to actually have a good detail on that ship. Starbucks in his womanizing ways. You know, he's thinking options. Got to have a backup plan. And then you got Sayuri going a bit NF on us, where it's like, well, if we get rid of all of our weapons as a sign of good faith, then our enemies have nothing to fear. And then when he heard that, he said, must be the grog. And even Serena, the NF's giving him a bit of a look as well. I think that's where he's proposing. Ooh. Right. They're very disco-y. You don't have to build anything, you just have like a tent. So that's cheap production. Then you got this guy, that very scary. Good. And then Starbuck trying to make a deal. And actually good for the camera because like this kind of gesture to like as like a depth cue. This gives a little bit more depth to the image. Then it's like, well, you might not be around here. If you think, you know, I don't take the elevator. Right. Oh, again, that's good lighting. Nice. Caravaggio would be happy with that, wouldn't he?
Definitely.
He would approve. Did he have that scene where, you know, where Colonel Ty's collecting up all the uniforms?
Yeah.
Because they want to make it look, look like they've got the pilots at the ceremony, but they've just got people in the uniforms. And then you look at this, and then he sort of wakes up and he's like he like straightens himself up a bit. I thought that was quite funny. And then the fat pilot, and then he said something like, "Everyone's wearing the wrong uniform," and he says something like, "You should have seen the guy that got my uniform." And then taking all of the, and then he gets rumbled. There he is. There, that's when he wakes up. He straightens himself out. And then the thing that McQuarrie drew, and then how they realised it. I like that. And again, you combining things. Right. What we got here? Right. That is well shot, good angle. And then this is where Apollo notices things like there's things like, oh, I don't want the name of his tailor. Those kind of comments. They must have terrible tailors. Although people would wear stuff like this in the 1990s, you know. Right, here we go. Oh, you can see the little blue things over there, so not that much left. We've got the Daggett thing. Ah, then the trap is revealed. The Cylons and the Ovions in cahoots. The Ovions want the humans for their larvae to eat. Right, there we go. And then when little Noah Hathaway gets in the way, Boxy, it's like, okay, got to protect him and swing the trap. And then what happens is during the kerfuffle, Starbuck says a certain word that we'll know that fans are famous for in Mark II, where it says, "Oh, frack," and that's where it came from. Starbuck was the first one to say frack.
Okay.
You got the maggots eating the people. I mean, that's. As a kid, that is like really, and then another angle where they show like it's like a skeleton in there, a skeleton, because that's what the kids call them skeletons. Oh, yes, they even eat socialators, right? They don't know; they're not fussy. Let the attack begin. Right. And then let's have a load of big guys in suits waddling around. Right. Cool red eye, which was reused in Knight Rider. Oh, battle sequence. Proper computers from the time. Very nice. And I will Oh, you said you were going to say something about the socialator. About.
Oh no, I just thought it was funny when they got caught. She steamed them out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they could have made these legs. I mean, remember what we saw before when we saw the one from 1927?
Mm-hmm.
They got the legs right here. Should have put a bit more effort in. Yes, I know there's more of them and they only had one, but a little bit more. I would have gone to a museum. I would gone to an armorer, and said, okay, how did they do these suits of armor? Things like that, because I'm sure they could have made the robots, because eventually they made them look good in Doctor Who for the Cybermen. Oh, we've got the Land Ram vehicle, specially built for the series. Right, here we've probably got a thing where, okay, this is real, that's real, that might be like a bit of cardboard, and then this is like...
Painting? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, when you do that, that means this camera has to stay really still so everything's lined up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then... And then they're trying to get a sort of, it looks like a sort of a Sphinx type theme for the helmets.
Yeah.
Oh, what they did in the next episode, when we get to watch it, they go to Egypt. The production crew went to Egypt. Now, what happened was that they didn't send the real cast there. They had some doubles actually go around, so it's just so they had a double for Adama, a double for Selena, and they actually said because it was illegal for a woman to wear trousers, they had to put a boy in. So the double of Selena was like a boy, and they had to angle it because they wouldn't have a woman in trousers for that particular shot of them going through the particular pyramids in Egypt. Sexiest a-holes. Right, they are said it. Alright. 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 Oh, here we go. Let's see if we can have any more. Oh wow, that would have taken. You got to get the optical printer going there, Haley. The number of times you get it all lined up. So multiple exposures to the film and layering it on, all these kind of things. Very good work. And they're all moving as well in different layers.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty hard shot to do. A nice shot there. Again, you get some good perspective by just angling things right. Now we've seen this. We've sort of seen something similar to this bit before. That bit from the other side. This bit we've seen something similar to this before. So. And again, here's an example. Again, you've got sort of a bit of a black line around the outside where it's been joined up. The two things. So here. Oh yes, I can tell you how they did this. In the outtakes, you actually see that what they did is this was sort of done live, and that was back projection. So it's just being a little projector screen behind you, and it's they would run that, and there was certain bits in the outtakes. It was that would run up, and before it would go, numbers would come up on that screen because it was okay, now it's running the film for the background, and then they would talk whilst the film was running for the background. So that was quite cool seeing that on the on the making of documentary. That's nice. I like these red numbers. Like, have a clock that like sticks out like that, where you don't have. It's really hard. I'm trying to find a 24-hour clock with red numbers that will just stay on. I don't want one of these ones where I've got to clap my hands or say, "Oi, turn on," in order to see it. And I can't find one. I want a 24-hour one because I'm fed up of converting from 12 hours to 24 hours. Right. Here we go. Oh, they've been bumbled again. Oh, I've not got any ships. Oh, what's going to happen? Oh, and that's when they like fake them out with some red and blue, giving them the impression, disinformation that there's more squadrons attacking than what there are. They're not. Right. Got to go closer to the surface, but the surface has got all that tilium underneath. Yeah. But it's the tilium mines are highly unstable, and then eventually it interacts and it gets blown up. Now that wasn't the only Imperial leader. There's a lot of them. Well, it actually releases that. It tells you that at the end, where it's like epilogue, the bit that was shoved on. It wasn't in the film version. Ah, Belter. And then here's the other one. Now I've got a new guy to help you. I've got a camp robot to help you with an American theatre standard accent. And here he is. It's just somebody with a purple hair. And he's like, oh, I can help you. And he hasn't actually said anything yet, but this guy is fantastic.
I remember you talking about it, yeah.
Yeah. And then, what we got here? Co-starring Ed Begley Jr., Richard Spoon, Lieutenant Zach, Randy Oakes as the young woman, Norman Stewart, statesman. Anything that people can see these, and let's quickly go through these. Oh, theme, Stu Phillips. A theme is so good, people thought it was John Williams who did the Star Wars music. And forever there was always thinking Galactica, John Williams. No, it was Stu Phillips that did it. It was very good. And he actually played a little bit of it in Mark II when they had the flyby. Love, love, love. That was, yeah. Yeah, they used to call them optical effects. Or the optical printer and combining things. Right. John Dykstra, the miniature effects. Special electronic effects. One guy.
Yeah.
Landram vehicle, fire coal. Test and display equipment, Tektronix. What we got here? 1978. Here we go. Universal. And because Sci-Fi Channel is owned by NBC Universal. So, always one thing I have to show people. Oh, you're there. I should have mentioned. Let's find out about my stage play. I will show people the big Cylon head I have. Oh, I might as well show this as well. Oh. So then, we have, nice. It even has that little red kind of thing that sometimes catches the lights and looks red. There you go.
Yeah, it does. How much was that?
I don't know. I mean, what I remember got annoyed me about this is I got a notification that I had to go to the post office and pay import tax because I ordered it with other things and it went up above a certain amount and I had to pay import tax for the Cylon head. But at the time, in about 2007, it was like $2 to the pound because the dollar was going down, and so I was buying a lot of stuff from Amazon.com rather than .co.uk. And then also the Blu-ray set of Mark II.
Okay.
No spoilers on there, I don't think. Right then, so now that it's like you've watched the whole thing again, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I like it. I like in Mark II. It's just my just how I am peeking through. I like how they focus more. There is this one scene, and I think it's with the chick we find out who's a Cylon. She's the Oriental girl.
Yeah.
Where she's like walking down the corridor in the ship, and like she sees that like the guy she's dating or whatever, like they see that they're both alive and that they have that moment like, oh my God, he's still alive. So I like that. It's probably one of my favorite scenes. Other than that, yeah, I really do like it. I kind of like the storyline of Mark II as far as like the Cylons being human and why they are. So
yeah, it's like they added to it. It's like you've got that original base, but it's like just some of the fun things I like, and because I watched it when I was younger, when they repeated it, and it's just like I have affection for both series, and I love it when it like refers to the previous one as well. It's always cool to have that sort of like combination of things. But I would like it if Starbuck was a little bit more like Mark 1. So yeah, I mean it's like I suppose overall I like Mark 2 better, and that's Baltar. Baltar's the best, and the actor would make a fantastic Doctor in Doctor Who. Would be the best at that. But I've talked about that before.
yes.
So. Right then, so I think that's about it, folks. I suggest if you've got this far, check out my stage play. It's got a preview section. You can read a few pages. I don't know how much you can read. The buggers might even let you read about 40 pages of it. I don't know. I'll have to check my settings on Lulu, see how generous I am. Right, so I better. There you go, folks. Yeah. There's my spotlights. So I think we'll call it about it. I think the next thing we'll watch is, because talk about fighting a war on two fronts. Haley and I were sort of reviewing about 4 different things at the same time, and we'll sort of like get, we might get done by the time Haley's 30. Various series. Right, so I think the next one is going to be, and I think it's an Only Fools and Horses. So stay tuned, folks. Although that would probably be reviewed maybe at the end of June or July, maybe, because Haley is having a little bit of a private hiatus.
A little bit.
Right. So then. Bye-bye, folks.
That's all.